Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathleen and today's video is going to be a wrap-up video. I haven't done a wrap-up video since my June wrap-up and you're probably wondering, why did you take so long? Well, at the beginning of August I started going through a really bad reading slump, and because of that, it wasn't necessarily that I started going through a filming slump, but I started not feeling like doing my wrap-ups. Like, I stopped doing TBR videos completely because of my reading slump, and my wrap-ups also just got pushed to the back burner because of my reading slump. But the end of the year is coming up and I really want to get caught up on my wrap-ups before the year ends, and I thought about putting July all the way to November all in one video, but July was actually one of my best reading months I ever had, and this video would have been too long if I did that. So I'm going to go ahead and get myself caught up on my wrap-ups in two videos. First is going to be my July wrap-up, which is this video, and then my next wrap-up will be August through November, because believe it or not, August through November I read less than I did in July. In the month of July, I read a total of 10 books. Let's go ahead and get started with this very late wrap-up. Alright, and so the first 4 books that I read in the month of August was actually a reread. I decided to reread one of my favorite series of all time, and it is the Illuminae Files by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. And so I read Illuminae first, Gemini, and then Obsidio, and then lastly I read Memento. This is supposed to be a prequel. It's a very short prequel to the events of Illuminae, the first book. And so I reread this series, and I think I read this within like a week. I don't quite remember how fast I read it, but this is one of my favorite series of all time. This series is actually what got me to love sci-fi books set in outer space, and I enjoyed rereading the series. I gave all these books 5 stars the first time I read them, and I gave them all 5 stars the second time that I read them. The next book that I read during the month of July was Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. This is the second book in the Sipe series. The third and final book just recently came out, and I love this book to pieces. This is actually one of my favorite series of all time. It solidified Neil Shusterman as one of my favorite authors of all time because I read another one of his series, and that series is also another favorite of mine. So this is set in a world where humans have conquered death. So in order to stave human population from becoming too big and too much to the environment, the humanity has created the Scythedom, and the Scythedom are these group of people who are selected to be scythes basically, and they have to decide which people die permanently. It's a really great series. It has a lot of ethics and morals, and I would highly recommend it. I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I read was J.C. Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I decided to read this book because everybody was reading it, and I did read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo before, which is by the same author, and that book is amazing. It's actually one of my favorite books of all time. So when people started praising this book, I decided to pick it up as well, and I did love this book too. However, I didn't quite love it as much as I loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I gave this book 4 stars, and it follows this rock band basically with Daisy Jones as one of its main singers and their journey towards becoming best-selling artists and this really famous band. And it's a really good story. I would highly recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like her books really tug at your heartstrings. She really gets you involved in these people's lives, and I really quite enjoyed this book. The next book that I read, I don't actually have a physical copy of this book, and it is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. This is a book that I vlogged my experience reading this book, so I'll leave it on the screen if you guys would like to check it out. It is a spoilery vlog, so if you haven't read this book, I wouldn't recommend watching my video obviously, but I decided to give Colleen Hoover a second chance. I had read November 9 by Colleen Hoover before, and I talked about it on my channel about how much I hated that book. Just the ending of it ruined the whole book for me. I ended up giving that particular book 2 stars, and so I was very hesitant since then to pick up another Colleen Hoover book. But my friend Chloe from the Brunette Bibliophile really enjoyed All Your Perfects, and she said, hey, you know, give it a chance. I actually really enjoyed All Your Perfects. It is about this couple. The book kind of flips back between their present life and their past, like when they first met and when they first got together and kind of thing, and their struggles with infertility. And it was a really nice book. It didn't end quite as how I was expecting, but I was still very satisfied with how it ended. I gave the book 4 stars, and I'm surprised by saying that because I really didn't think I could ever like another Colleen Hoover book after reading November 9 did. I felt really connected to the main characters of this book, and I really identified with their issues with infertility because my sister went through the same struggles, and I really connected with the story, and I thought it was amazing. So I am looking forward to reading other Colleen Hoover books. At the moment, not right now, just because I'm going through a reading slump and I really don't feel like reading anything at all. Alright, and then the next book that I read was That Summer by Sarah Dessen. I think I picked up this book because we were in the middle of a readathon. I want to say it was BOOKTUBE-a-thon, but I don't quite remember for sure. And this fit one of like the categories for it, one of the reading challenges. And it was one of the very few Sarah Dessen books that I have never read. Sarah Dessen is actually one of my favorite contemporary authors. I don't have all of her books, but I had the majority of them. And this was one that I hadn't read. And this is actually one of her first books that she was published, and I didn't quite enjoy it. I gave this book 3 stars, and I'm surprised because I generally tend to love Sarah Dessen books. This book, it just didn't quite have the magic, the Sarah Dessen magic that I usually find in her books. I didn't connect with the main character. I didn't connect with the story. It just felt very bland, very boring, nothing special about it. So it was an okay read, and that's why I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read, I really enjoyed. It was actually one of my most anticipated reads of this year, and it was Defy the Fates by Claudia Gray. This is the 3rd and final book in the Defy the Stars series trilogy. It's a sci-fi book set in outer space, and you know that since I've read Illuminate, I really love those. It's about a cyborg named Abel who falls in love with a human soldier, with a female human soldier, and it's really good. It talks about humanity and what it means to be human, and I just really enjoyed the story. There was so much action to it, and I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. It was not my favorite in the series, but I still really loved it. I loved how it ended, how everything wrapped up so nicely, and I would highly recommend if you really love sci-fi books out in outer space. And the 10th and final book that I read in the month of July was God's Grave by Jay Kristoff. I loved this book so much. So many things happened, and I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed the series. I think it's so different. I've never quite read a fantasy book quite like this series. The only thing is that I did read this book while listening to the audio at the same time, and I have a problem with the narrator of this book. A lot of people might not find this to bother them, but it bothers me. I've never had this problem with any other narrator, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but this narrator, he swallows rather loudly, and most of the time I'm in my room very silent and the volume is up, or I'm listening with my earbuds on, and I hear the swallow, and it drives me nuts. Like, this shiver goes down my spine, and I hate it. I don't understand why when they were editing the audiobook, why they didn't just cut out all his swallows, because he swallows an awful lot. Again, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but I noticed it. That was my only issue with the audiobook, but the story itself was amazing. I still haven't read Dark Dawn, but I heard a lot of people say it's amazing as well. I'm trying to prepare myself for the Dark Dawn because I feel like Jay Kristoff just wants to shatter your heart and shatter your soul and shatter you in general. He certainly did with me with this book, so I feel I have to prepare myself for Dark Dawn. I really do. And there you go, guys. That was my very late July wrap up. I try not to ramble so much just because I had a lot of books that I read, and I'm so proud of how much I read in the month of July, and so I didn't want to keep talking too much and make this video super long. But let me know down in the comments below, how has been your reading lately? For me, it's been very bad. Again, I'm going through my reading slump, and I haven't had a reading slump this badly in a very long time, so I'm kind of struggling right now. But let me know how your reading has been, because I would really love to know. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. All of my social medias are linked down below, including Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads, if you'd like to follow me on those platforms. Hope to see you guys on my next video. Have a good day, guys, and keep reading. Bye!